Thanks for tuning in to an Acquired Chef's YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay tuned for more culinary innovations coming your way. I'll start with, so we're going to do this in phases. We're going to do first the laksa paste. So you can certainly buy it, but I like making it. I'm going to show you how to make it, a very simple one. And then once we're done with the laksa paste, we'll get the laksa going. So not just the paste fried in with the meat and everything else. And then the thing with laksa is, I know when you go to restaurants these days, like a laksa bowl just appears and it just comes out and it's served to you. But how laksa is traditionally served in Malaysia, at least, is you get a bowl, empty bowl, you put noodles, you put all the different things that go in it. And then once you've done all that to your liking, you top it up with the laksa soup. So we're going to do that at the end of class today. So I have all those sorts of condiments that I'm going to prepare while the laksa soup is cooking. And I might just transfer him to my stove over there just so that I can show you how I prepare some of the other ingredients. But yeah, we're going to get started with the spice paste. So to start, I'm just going to grab my blender jug over here. I'm going to go in with the shallots first. I'm using, again, shallots. Now, if you wanted to use onions, you kind of maybe halve the amount because onions are very strong. These are red shallots, so they're kind of, you could probably use French shallots if you want. Shallots are better than onions in these cases because they're not as oniony. We don't want that onion punch. We just kind of want it in the background, and that's why we use 100 grams of shallots. So I'd use maybe 60 grams of red onion, or even better if you use brown onion instead of red onion, if you can get your hands on it. So that's going in to the very bottom of the jug because it's nice and juicy and it'll blend quite beautifully. The next thing that's going in, what am I going in with? That was exactly the amount that went in. It's like roughly, depending on the size, 5 to 6. And that too, it's, I just kind of weigh them out once I've chopped them up. And now the next one, keep me honest, Kathy, is garlic. So I've got 4 cloves of garlic, 2 inches worth of ginger that I've just bashed. If you can get your hands on fresh galangal, I would do 1 inch each. So fresh galangal, it's like in the same family as turmeric and ginger. And it's basically, it's a little bit more peppery than ginger. So ginger is a fine substitute, which is why I've gone in with 2 inches of ginger. But if you can get your hands on galangal, it's just going to add that natural, more sort of authentic flavor. But if you can't, that's fine. Just go ahead with 2 inches. Otherwise, 1 inch each. And that's just been bashed and kind of chopped up a little bit to break the fiber so that the blender doesn't have to work too hard. The thing with these sorts of spices is ginger, garlic, lemongrass as well. Too much of it turns the laksa bitter. And so that's where you do want to apportion them. That's why I've gone, right, if you've got galangal, do 1 inch each rather than 2 inches of each or anything like that. Because when you cook the laksa, it will turn bitter. Then you're going to be struggling to add more sugar to kind of offset it. So in the case of the 3 inches of ginger that they've got, it might be because I'm putting in 2 lemongrasses and they might have just had 1 lemongrass. You guys have probably seen a full lemongrass before. I've just kind of cut up to about there, right? Because that's where it starts to go green. The green does 2 things. It makes the laksa paste fibrous and it makes it very bitter. The green bits we don't like. The green bits we keep to make tea with. So I've actually been doing a couple of different recipes and I'm going to be making, if you can see, these ones have been chopped off and I just kind of keep them so that I can chop them up and throw them into a pot of water and boil it for about an hour and it turns into lemongrass tea and it's really good for you. You can even have it cold. You can throw some rock sugar or honey in it. That way you don't waste it. You actually end up making something with it, but you definitely don't want to be putting it into your laksa paste. So once you cut that off, what I typically do is I also cut the end off so that that stub kind of comes off, which is where the root typically is. And then I usually peel a layer off because that layer too is quite fibrous because it's protecting the lemongrass on the inside. Again, it can be bitter. So chop off 2/3 of it, chuck that to the side, chop off that end bit. And then what I've done here, as you can see, is I've just kind of bashed it. Bashing it, again, makes the fibers loose. And then you're in a position to actually kind of just chop it roughly so that the blender doesn't have to work too hard. So hopefully that makes it straightforward and easy for folks. That's just going into the blender jug as well. What we're left with is one of the reasons why I reduced the garlic. So I have here candle nut. Candle nut is, oh, maybe you can't see it because it's shining. So that's a candle nut. It looks a lot like a macadamia nut. So if you can't get candle nut, macadamia nut's actually a really good substitute. Now, what it does, it's used a lot in Indian cooking, but also Malaysian cooking. It's even used in rendang. It adds creaminess. So on its own raw, it's toxic. just so that, because there's some controversy about it. It is toxic, which is why we're going to make sure we actually cook the laksa paste properly to, I suppose, break down all those toxins, because that's what the cooking does. And then it makes it completely safe to consume. So 3 of those are going in, and that's why I've reduced the garlic, because that creaminess will come from this guy. And they've just gone in straight out. So macadamia nuts is going to be a good alternative for you to get from Woolies if you can't get a hold of that. Now, the last thing that's going in is a third of a cup of water, and that was boiling water when I put it in. It's no longer boiling water anymore. What it's got in there, if you can see, is 3 red chilies. Laksa traditionally is something that derives its spiciness from non-chili, so things that don't have a scoliosis level, so that it's easy to consume. So things like ginger and galangal and lemongrass are spicy without having the chili hit to it. And so I'm adding it here because I like it. You don't have to add it. It's totally optional. And I have put more than 3 in, and I struggled. So if you want a slight kick, maybe just 1 or 2, or if you've got a good spice tolerance, I would go no more than 3. And what's also sitting in there, I don't know if you can see it, but just it's a big cube at the very bottom, that third of a cup of boiling water that's now come to room temperature. That little block is this guy. So this is what would make it shrimpy. So this is something that you can buy at Woolies. So it's basically belacan, which is shrimp paste that's been sort of roasted and cooked down into these little blocks. And so I like to soak it in that water along with the chili because it softens it. And so that's just going to add that umami flavor that is just wonderful. That is just what makes laksa, traditionally speaking. Now, if you're allergic to prawns or you don't want to use prawns, a half a tablespoon of fish sauce would do quite nicely. So just a half a tablespoon, no more than that. Now it's starting to border on it being more of a Thai dish than a Malaysian dish, but if you really do have prawn allergies, we don't want that to flare up. So fish sauce works quite nicely as a substitute. If you don't take meat of any kind, then I would take some yaki nori from like this, the same thing you wrap sushi in. So that kind of just gives that, and you can throw a little bit into the blender and you can maybe add some shredded stuff on top as well, if you like. So you can just kind of slice them really thin with the scissors and just use it as a garnish at the end. What it does is it gives that sea taste without it being a prawn or any kind of other like fish sauce or anything like that. So that works as a really good substitute if you're a vegan to throw in. So I'd throw in like one of these sheets. I'd probably throw in like a quarter of it, just kind of shredded up and thrown in there. Just to add that flavor. And then if you still think that's not enough, then you can always add it as a garnish later on, and then you mix it in. Cool. So, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in and do.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We did have a question. The shrimp paste.
Yes. That's right. We've got
questions. Was the shrimp paste in the cooled water previously boiled or in the hot water?
What I'm going to do is give everyone an opportunity to have silence while I blend over here. I'm going to go on mute so you don't have to be bothered by all the noise. So I'll quickly do that and come back. So what I'm looking to do, because it's got enough water in there, it should blend all the way through. It should take a minute. But if it doesn't, I'll add a little bit, like a tablespoon of water incrementally to see until the blender blade kind of gets through most of it. It may not be a completely perfectly pure blend, that's fine. Most of it without it being stuck, that's what we're looking for. So I'll be back in a sec. Do that. I'm just scraping down the sides of the blender. I will need to go in with a tinge more water. It is struggling a little bit, and it'll just about a tablespoon's worth was just going to get it going quite smoothly again. And it's almost done. Like I can see that most of this is almost blended all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and pour. Oh, there we go. Kind of not a very pretty color at the moment, and that's actually the color of Penang Asam Laksa. So it's not got a nice vibrant color. What's going to give it that golden color is going to be the turmeric in the curry powder, which I'm going to mix it into right now. But yeah, that's the other reason why I would not suggest using Spanish or red onions, because it's going to turn the color funny. Brown onions is much better if you don't have shallots. And again, half of the quantity, because Spanish onions is just going to give that I suppose really strong purpley color that you don't want. So that's most of all that I could scrape out from the blender blade. And I'm just going to mix that in now with the curry powder. And that's going to be what goes in here in a second. So I'm going to actually, what I'll do is probably just heat up the oil. So I'm going to go on a very high heat just to get the oil heated up. Then I'm going to drop it halfway. I'm going to go in with a fourth of a cup of peanut oil or any vegetable oil with a high heat point, and you'll be fine. You can certainly do more. You can do a third of a cup. I'm trying to be healthy. But yes, you can do either a third or a fourth of a cup, whatever your preference is, but you will need a good amount of oil because it does need to cook, especially that candle nut down completely before we add some chicken. It's gonna just be a little bit of the paste just kind of thickens up quite into like this puree, which is what you would typically find if you bought a laksa paste, except that a laksa paste would have preservatives, a lot of extra salt and a lot of extra sugar, which may not be good for you. So you can always make a big batch of this and keep it in the freezer. It'll last about up to 3 months if you want to kind of just get that batch going. I typically do that with curry pastes as well. And then you just have it ready to go. When you defrost it, it can go immediately into the fire. Drop paste, and it's going to get a little bit noisy. It is lovely, isn't it? And so we just want all of that to cook properly. So we want, and that's why there is a heavy amount of oil in here, because we want it to just kind of hug the spice paste so that everything gets properly cooked. And so we're going to keep mixing it, and we're going to watch it go from a very golden color to a deep red. And that's when we'll know that it's fully cooked, combined with giving it a sniff to make sure that all those raw ingredients are cooked all the way. But we're not going to wait for it to cook all the way, because one of the things we're going to do is add the chicken in to cook with it. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, to kind of sear the chicken a little bit, and 2, to give the chicken some color, because it's going to pick up all that turmeric. What I'm going to do is go ahead and add the chicken. So what I've got here is 2 big chicken breasts, and I'm not cutting it, because what's going to happen is they're going to go in whole. They're going to boil for about 20 minutes, and then once it comes to a high heat, we're going to let it simmer. And then what happens is I take them out later on and shred it. And so that shredded meat becomes what you end up either adding as a topping or throwing back into the soup for a final finish. That's just going to go in as is. All right, so that's going to sit for a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to busy myself over here with the prawns I didn't get a chance to prep. I need to devein them. But yes, so just 5 minutes on either side. And then we're going to probably go ahead and throw some stock in it. So what I've done today for the stock, now you have several options to do the stock, right? You can either just use water, which I've done with the prawn shells. So I take the prawn shells, all parts of the shells, the head, the little feet, and I wash it, and I throw it into some water with some salt. And I've used 1.5 liters of water, and I've just boiled it for about 20 minutes. And it just draws out, it creates a prawn stock, basically. And it just draws out this wonderful flavor into the dish that then becomes the basis for the stock. Now, if you don't want to do that, or if you aren't using prawns, the other thing you can do is add some chicken stock cubes. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to add half the chicken stock cubes and use the prawn stock that I'll show you as I sieve it into this in a second. And then of course, again, for vegetarian versions, you can always use veggie stock for the water, so for the soup instead of just plain water. But yes, hopefully that makes sense. So again, a little bit of the taste that we add back as well is sugar. So I'm going to be using palm sugar because that makes it very, very Malaysian. But you can use raw sugar. There's my timer on the 5-minute mark. But yeah, you can use any kind of sugar to get that going. Now I'm going to add the prawn stock that I have, that I've prepared to start, and then I'll add a little bit more water on top of it and just give it a bit of a stir. So I'm going in with a very big sieve and all that prawn that has been cooking. It's almost done dripping. There we go. So that's all I'm just gonna give it a very, very good stir, because some of that laksa paste is either stuck to the pan of the chicken, and I wanna loosen that out so that it actually goes into the soup instead. And I'm gonna be adding my 2 cubes of stock to start, and it's gonna let that stir first. So you can start to see that paste that's gonna come off the chicken and the pan is gonna start to dissolve into the water. I'm also gonna bring that heat back up to a high, just so that it has an opportunity to come to the boil before it goes into a simmer for about 20 minutes. Now I'm gonna be adding a few more things that you may or may not be able to get. So I'm gonna talk through that in a second in terms of things that you can use versus substitutes. So The first thing that's going to go in is going to be pandan leaves. So now this one's tricky. You may not be able to get this. That's 3 leaves that I've tied into a very, very small knot so that I can have as much surface area without it kind of swimming in there. So three pandan leaves. My suggestion to you, if you can't get pandan leaves, is a cup, like a half a teaspoon maximum of pandan essence will do the trick, but you don't want to do more than that because pandan essence typically is used more for things that you bake or kind of cook with in that sense, not so much for savory dishes. So yeah, a little goes a long way because it's very, very concentrated. But 3 leaves like this that goes in, and this is it just completely elevates the dish. If you don't have pandan essence or pandan leaves, you just omit it. There's really nothing you can replace it with. So if you can get your hands on some essence, great. If you can't, it's fine. It's going to be like the rum rao as well. You're not going to add that. I'm not going to add that today, but if you can get your hands on it, it just ends up being something you add at the end of the dish. So that's just gone in to boil along with the chicken. And the other thing that's going to go in here is asam glogor or asam kaping. Now this is going to take a little bit of an explanation. Let me talk about substitutes first because that's an easy one to do. Yes, you can use tamarind puree. So you would have seen this before at a Woolies or Coles. About a teaspoon's worth will do the trick. It's going to add sour and sweetness. It's better than just lemon or lime because it doesn't have the sweetness, and when you cook it, it can turn bitter, whereas tamarind has the sweetness that goes with it. This is often called tamarind slice, but it's actually not from a tamarind. Tamarind comes in these little shells, and sometimes you can dry the tamarind shells and use that. So that's also a good substitute, but this is actually from a specific plant in Malaysia, from a place in Penang called galugor, and it's actually a fruit, if you can see it. And so it's kind of like dried, I suppose, apricot, but cut thinner. And again, it's got that sweetness and sourness to it. And again, it's very unique. So if you can get, you will be able to find this. It's usually called asam kaping or asam galugor, or tamarind slice in any Asian grocer. So you can get a hold of that if you want to throw it in. And if you can't, tamarind puree is a good substitute, just a teaspoon of that to go in. So 2 of those are going in, and you can eat that. Once it's cooked down, it becomes really, really soft. It's not one of those things that you need to remove from the dish either. So you can just throw it in and forget about it. Hopefully you can see that color of the laksa. So this is gonna sit for a little while. I'm gonna actually move him over to the other stove just to boil. But what I want to do is have it come to a high boil and then cover it for about 20 minutes so that chicken completely cooks and sort of adds to the flavor of the soup. The soup's not done yet because we're gonna add coconut milk, and that's what's gonna give it that light creamy color that you typically see in coconut laksas that you buy in restaurants. But this is one of, so laksa, the origin of the name laksa has so many origins. There's a Sanskrit word for it, it's called lakshak, which is in reference to the noodles, like there's so very many noodles. So lak means thousands, so hundreds and thousands in a way, like kind of how we call the little colorful rice. The other one is a Hakka way of saying laksa is actually in reference to the fact that it looks like sand, because it looks like grainy soup that looks like it's, you know how when you make sand with water, it just becomes grainy soup. So that's another way with which the name came about. There's about 7 other ways, because it's covered so many cultures and so many different languages. The name has actually evolved over time, and there's so many different stories about how it came about. So no one really knows, but yeah, just a little bit of trivia for everyone in case you're interested around how on earth, like, did that name come about and what is it and all that kind of stuff.
Hungry.
It is a breakfast dish, mind you. Laksa is actually something that's served as breakfast in most parts of Malaysia, and even in Darwin. Darwin has now a very strong laksa culture, and they have it for breakfast over there. I'll quickly get through these prawns, and then I'll go through preparing some of the other bits that help get the laksa all put together while that on this. I've just got the banana prawns from Coles and Woolies because they're really nice and big. One of them's like huge. I went, wow, this is a really big prawn. So yeah, they serve as a good prawn. And what I've also done, just as while I'm going through it, is once I take the knife and I've cut all the way through to get the vein out, to devein them, I actually keep going. I keep going and going and going until it's almost cut all the way through. So it's I think it's called butterflying a prawn. And what that does later on when I cook it is it'll just open up and curl out. And so it's still all the way attached at the other side, but it's kind of cut all the way through on this side. I do that with all the prawns, and I'll show you why, like the end product of that in a little bit when we add it to the chicken stock. All right, I'm gonna get this pot, just throwing in some boiling water into a separate pot now. And this will be the pot that kind of gets all the other ingredients ready, things like noodles, things like bean sprouts, and a couple of other things. Some I've prepared earlier and I'll show them to you, but the rest I'm going to do now. But yes, so that's already coming to a boil. I have a little handy sieve that I've misplaced, here we go, that I quite like to use because it just becomes something that goes into the pot, it cooks stuff, and I can pull it straight out and keep the water in there. So what I'm gonna do with that oil, I've just got bean sprouts. So again, you can grab these from Woolies. I've got my little sieve that's going in, and I'm just gonna blanch these. I'm not gonna cook them very much. Actually, that's not enough water. Let me get more water in there. Give me a second. Here we go. Probably want water coming almost all the way to the top. But yes, I'm just gonna blanch the bean sprouts for about 30 seconds, just to kind of give them a quick wash. I don't want to overcook them because then they lose their crunch. But I do want to cook them so that, sorry, I do want to blanch them so that they're not completely raw and they're ready to add to the dish to eat. Let that come to a boil. So bean sprouts are going to be the first thing that I do. Some of the other things I'm going to do is long beans or French beans, whichever one you call them. I've cut them into about 1 inch roughly, 1 to 2 inch slices. So they become, again, another condiment that just goes on top. So these are all going to be the condiments that once we put together everything, they are ready to add to the top of the dish before we pour the laksa over it. So that's going to be the second thing we do. I've already prepared some of the other stuff. So here are two things. These are boiled eggs, and I've soft boiled them, so you can see the eggs are, the egg yolks are still quite, I like it soft or not completely cooked, but you can cook them all the way, but it's just a regular boiled egg cut in half. And these are julienne carrots. So these are sorts of the things that go on top of the laksa, along with the long beans and the bean sprouts. They just become sort of the garnish that goes with the dish that doesn't get thrown into the laksa soup, if that makes sense. And then the other things we're gonna do once this guy comes to a heat is gonna be the noodles. So we've got two types of noodles today that I'm using. We've got Hokkien noodles. I was trying to remember the name. Hokkien noodles. So they're very, as you can see, very, very thick. They're usually used in Hokkien noodles, which is Hokkien style noodles. But I'm using them in laksa today because I think they contrast really well with the vermicelli that I'm going to be using as well, which I'm going to prepare. I'll actually bring it over here so I can show you guys how I put that together as well. So all of this sort of just needs a bit of a blanch. You parboil it so that it's ready to go. And then when you top it up into the soup, when you serve each bowl, then it just kind of picks up the flavor of the laksa and it's ready to go. So yes, so water is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated to come to the boil. So we'll just leave that going for a second. I'm just gonna go check on the chicken vermicelli noodles that I'm using. So that's about 200 grams worth, dried. And I'm just gonna start by putting water in it, room temperature water, just to get it going. And then what I'll do is I'll drain some of that out and add boiling water. So I'm really cautious not to throw boiling water onto them directly because that just turns them into mush. We don't want them to turn into mush. We kind of want them soft but wiry. Because again, it's gonna, when you add the laksa soup into it, that's really gonna be what you want it to absorb in terms of the flavor so that it tastes really good rather than just tasting like water. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that and then show you what it looks like. And as a consequence of adding water, nothing's really gonna happen to it other than it's slightly rehydrating. It's still gonna be quite hard. But once we let that sit for a couple of minutes, then we add swap out some room temperature water for boiling water. And then we will be ready to go in terms of just sort of separating it and having it be ready to be added to laksa. So this water is starting to boil. We'll let that sit there for a minute. This pot's ready. I'm just going to put that to the side. And now I'm going to go in with, actually, I might take out all of this. Is that too hot? No, it's not. Cool. It's going to take out the rest of it and then have it ready to go with the next set of ingredients, which will be the bean sprouts. So just really quickly, that's not going to take very long. So we'll just leave them in there for a minute. So this is sort of still quite hard, as you can see, hopefully. So I'm not going to try and break that. I just want to show you that it's just to rehydrate it once. Now I'm going to take half the water out and put boiling water in. Once my boiling water is ready, the kettle, I've got the kettle going on the side. So the green beans are done now. So you can see that they've just gone from the raw color to that dark green color. So I'm just going to take them out, them to the side. And now I'm going to go ahead with my Hokkien noodles. So these are already hydrated, rehydrated. I'm just going to separate them a little bit and take them out. And I'm going to do them in parts. So I've got 2 packets. One packet is 200 grams each. So I'm going to also do that in parallel with my noodles. So I've just got the boiling water ready to go. And once I'm done with this, I'm just going to throw that in there all the way. My chicken laksa is done now, which is good timing. So I'm just going to put this aside. And I'm just going to go in with a pair of chopsticks. You can use forks. And you can start to see now, because there's boiling water in here, that these guys will start to loosen up a bit. I'm just going to let it sit in there. And I'm always conservative with this. I'd rather go in with less boiling water than more, even if it means I put a second batch of boiling water in so that it doesn't turn too soft too quickly. I'm just going to let that sit for a minute because give that boiling water a chance to work while I loosen this guy up. You can see he's pretty much already ready to go. So I'm just going to take him out into a box that I had. There we go. And then go in with the second packet in a second. So hopefully you can see that off to the side. Now we're going to go in again with this guy into my laksa. Yep, still going. I might get some more boiling water for that. All right, this chicken is looking good. So I'm just going to turn off the heat over there because I don't want it to keep cooking while I'm here. We're almost done with this guy. And then I think our ingredients are almost ready. We can bring the laksa pot back front and center. And then we'll keep going with that until we're almost done. All right, I've got more boiling water coming in because I think this one's, so I'd conservatively put in at least a liter of water and then kind of keep checking in on it. Kind of just what I usually do is I just kind of check, oh, yep, that's the mark at which I kind of had the soup at the point where before I kind of went in for the simmer. And then, you know, even if you put too much in, you can just cook it down, right? So don't worry too much about that. Like the idea is to simmer it, so keep the lid on and let it simmer. But then if you realize that, whoops, I've put too much in, now it tastes like it doesn't have much of a taste because there's too much water in there, take the lid off, bring up the heat slightly, let some of that water come out and you'll be fine. Hopefully that, it's a little bit of, it's just one of those things. Like I used to get really annoyed with my mom. She'd be like, oh, you just do this, that, and the third, and then it's done. It's like, no, I need instructions. So hopefully that's instructions for you, just around remembering the mark at which it was at. And look, I've made this laksa a few times as well. And sometimes I had it without there being, like, it was more of a gravy. And it was nice because there are certain types of laksas that they are served more as a gravy as opposed to a soup. And then I've had it sometimes as a soup. So sometimes, depending on what I feel like, I just kind of add a little bit more water and salt. But the essence is there. And then it's just a matter of adjusting it to make sure it doesn't taste tasteless, because that's what we don't want. It's soft already. I'm going to immediately take it out. But I'm just going to do it in the sink so you can't see it. So I'm sieving out the boiling water, and I'm immediately going to fill this bowl with cold water because I want to stop the cooking process. Otherwise, it's going to become mushy very quickly. And because it's vermicelli and it's so delicate, you kind of need to be extra careful with it because it will turn mushy. And I wanted to kind of still have a bit of spring in it before it goes into the laksa. So immediately cold water. And I wouldn't leave it in the cold water either because that too can turn it into mush. But you just want to flash it with cold water to stop the cooking process. So I'm just going to do that all underneath it. But hopefully you can see that's kind of come out. It's still quite Can you see how it's still quite springy and bouncy? It's not really sort of soft and cooked, and that's really where we want it at. So hopefully that makes sense, and it's cool to the touch. So I've completely brought it down to room temperature as well. I think I'm done with my blanching, so I'm gonna get rid of this pot, put him to the side, and I'm gonna bring my laksa back. I can kill that now. Nice and peaceful again. So you can see that the laksa is quite cooked down. I'm gonna put this away. I'll come back to him later. I am going to do two things at the moment. I am gonna cook the prawns in the laksa, but before I do that, I am gonna take out the chicken so I can shred it. So I'm gonna go grab me a plate. All right. Here we go. My two trusty forks. I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to maybe switch to the different angle view. I'll have you guys be the judge, but let me take the chicken out first, and then we can decide on that. So I've got my two big chunks of chicken. You can see how they've turned a nice, beautiful golden yellow color. Getting rid of all that soup. And this guy. There we go. All right. So I'm just gonna put that over here for a second. Let that cool for a minute and just give this guy a stir. I'm just looking for might use this guy now. Yep, so you can see how that golden color is now turned a little bit darker. I don't taste it for salt or sugar yet because I haven't added the coconut water, but I will take this guy out because what I'm going to do now is do the prawns while I shred the chicken. It's going to go straight into the bin underneath here. Really just a quick blanch with the prawns. Oh, right, that's right, the prawns. I've just forgotten I've switched cameras so you can watch me do the chicken. But yeah, so once that comes to a boil, I'll just grab my sieve, the same sieve that I used before for the blanching, and use that for the prawns, just so I can remove the prawns really quickly. And again, that's going to add to the flavor of the prawns, to the flavor of the laksa. The prawn broth just kind of gets enhanced a little bit more. So I'm going to leave him there for a second to let that come to a boil. And I'm going to shred the chicken over here. So it's not rocket science. Everyone shred chicken before, but you can see how it's white on the inside, and hopefully if I do it closer to the camera, you can see how maybe some parts of it aren't cooked yet, and that's totally fine because I prefer actually adding it back. So most people will take out the chicken and then they'll be like, all right, the chicken's ready to be added as a garnish along with the bean sprouts and other things. I prefer adding it back. Sorry, that was a bit noisy, because I like that the white meat actually gains a little bit of that yellow color all throughout. And I also personally find that when you add it back, it actually adds a little bit of the laksa spice and salt to the chicken, other than just it being on the outer side. So that's, again, personal preference. You don't have to add it back. If yours is cooked all the way through and you kind of like that little white color separation to the chicken, then that's cool too. I've seen it done both ways. I just like throwing it in because it also just means that's one less thing to add to the garnish. Just one pot and ready to go. So here we are. I'm going to keep going with the, might do it that way so you can see that. But yeah, nice and easy. That's actually a big blob of fat. I'm going to get rid of him. All right. I learned the other day that the quickest way to shred chicken is to actually throw it in a cake mixer and have it turn for you. The only problem here is that I'd get turmeric all over the cake mix, and I'm not a big fan of that. But if you do have shredded chicken or roast chicken that you've done and you want to just shred it up for sandwiches or a salad, that's probably a really nice little hack to shred it up rather than having to do it like this, if you lack the time or the patience or both. Now that I've finished shredding the chicken, I should probably switch back to this guy. Here we go. So I've got my prawns ready to go. You can see that soup's can be pulled out quite easily. You don't want to leave the prawns in the laksa soup because then it'll become rubbery. So a nice little sit down in there for a minute. Just let that come to a cook. And then once that's done, I'm going to add the chicken back in along with the tofu and the coconut milk and the sugar and the salt. That'll just kind of bring that all to a close. And then we'll have our laksa ready to plate.
She's come back. She doesn't know any, so I'll do some research.
Yes, look, I can think of a few off the top of my head. But yes, but you're specifically talking about Eid. Yeah, it's interesting because Eid and Ramadan, they actually are more focused on breaking fast because it's usually during the month of fasting and stuff. And they'll have, you know, lots of snacks. And by that, I mean sweet snacks, savory snacks that they'll do more so than dishes. Dishes will still be there like rendang and other types of curries and rice and things like that that they do traditionally have. But yeah, we can certainly do maybe something a little bit different, something a little bit more like a sweet dish, instead of a curry, if that's of interest. So these prawns are done, as you can see. They are properly cooked without being overcooked, and I'm being cautious of that. You'll see how this guy's turned out. He's just kind of come out butterflied in the way it was cooked, which is exactly what I was going for. And I'm just going to take him out and put it to the side to rest. And I've specifically used a glass bowl because it's got a lot of turmeric in it. It'll probably stain anything you put it in. So just be mindful of that as well. All right. This laksa is not, I think the heat on this guy isn't too high, but that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of things. So I talked about the tofu before. I'm going to go ahead and throw those in and they'll just float to the top typically. The next thing that's going to go in behind that is the chicken. Because I do like to have it cooked all the way through in case some bits aren't. And I did see some pink bits there that I'd like to get cooked. So that's going to go in as well. I'm going to put the prawns over here for a sec. Then I'm going to do the coconut milk, and then I'm going to taste for salt and sugar. We're almost done with the dish. Be in a position to plate pretty soon. But yeah, hopefully that was worth the wait. Right. And then I am going to add the coconut milk. So I've got, coconut cream. Now you can add milk, you can add light cream, etc. But it's going to change the way in which it mixes in. So like coconut cream, light coconut cream, coconut milk, light coconut milk. That's probably the order of thickness in terms of how it would add to the dish. I'm using the left-hand end of just coconut cream, because I did add some chili. And when you have chili, you need some fat to take the edge off. But if you're not adding chili, you could go with a light coconut cream or coconut milk. Light coconut milk, which is the other end of the spectrum, is very diluted. It would just be like adding a little bit of coconut and a lot more water. So I would recommend a cream or at least full fat coconut milk as opposed to light coconut milk. Did you guys just see how the color of that changed from a very dark red to now a very light milky yellow? And then I'm going to pretty much turn the heat off because it's dark. It smells amazing. And I get to have this all to myself because this one has prawn in it and my partner can't have any. So, but that's okay. I made him a chicken one yesterday, so he's all good. That is just really, really good. Really good. I have no words. I'm going to add a little bit of palm sugar. So that's just a block of palm sugar, or also known as gula melaka. And it's basically just going to be something I grate. And I'm just going to go in with what I think is about 1 to 2 teaspoons worth. Cool. So I'm just going to get all the sort of condiments that we talked about just all together so you guys can take a look at it all in one fell swoop. I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to bring that over. So here we go. Hopefully you guys can see most of that. Actually, you can't. Here, let's do this. Let me just finish. I think this is done now. So I'm going to switch off the heat for it. And I'm going to move him over here for a second. And I'm going to get rid of the stove so we can kind of have a look at everything together. My plate and put him over here. So we've got the noodles, we've got the egg, we've got the sambal and the lime, which I'll talk through in a second. We've got the cucumber, the long beans, and my bean sprouts are missing. Here we go. So let's get some bean sprouts going in there, just so we have enough to serve. And then we had the prawns on the side. We'll get the laksa as well, and we'll fix this up a bowl. We'll put that there. Bring the laksa back, and I'll bring a little plate to go with it. That's all visible now for you guys, hopefully, all in the one screen. Traditionally, laksa is served with limau's lime. This is just regular lime in Australia, but the limes that it's served with usually are yellow on the inside. And one of the types that I personally like is limau kasturi, but we don't have that here, or at least I wasn't able to get a hand on it. So I'm just going to use regular lime. And this is usually belacan. So it's basically a sambal that's served with most laksas. Now, if you don't have it, you're totally fine, because I think that pot of soup has so much flavor that you're not going to miss it. But traditionally it's served. So it's basically a combination of chili, sugar, salt, and a little bit of prawn paste that's fried down with oil until it becomes this deep dark color. And that's usually what laksa is served with. I'm going to put that all to the side so we can actually plate. So we're going to go in. I usually like to go in with the white noodles at the bottom. So just a wee bit of them. And then I like to scatter that with some Hokkien noodles at the top, just so that it's got a little bit of color. And I like the chunkiness at the top rather than the bottom. Then I like to go into the four corners with some bean sprouts. So a little bit of that there. And go in with the long beans on this side, a little bit more. I'm gonna go in with one of these eggs, just the one, put him there, and some cucumber there. Now that's ready to, there we go. That's ready to add this curry to, and then I'll put a prawn on top. So I'm gonna go in with one little tofu, just on the side. And I'm gonna go in with some soup to add to the middle. I am impressed. I usually spill it all over the sides. I hope I didn't jinx myself. I think this is the right pouring spoon for it. All right, now I'm gonna go in with some chicken. I'm gonna go dig deep and grab some chicken so that I can have it sitting on the top, like so. And finally, a prawn to go with. A nice little big guy. There we go. My favorite jumbo prawn for the day. And with that, we have ourselves a laksa, usually served with some paste. We can have them sit, there we go. And some lime, and voila. Oh, let me just lift that up so you guys can see it. Laksa. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you very soon.